Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to make this spring flower granny square that I made for my spring Afghan. If you're interested, I have all the information and the written pattern linked below. For this project you will need two different colors of worsted weighted yarn. I'm using Caron Simply Soft, and you will also need an H or a 5.0 millimeter hook, a tapestry needle, and some scissors. We're going to start by making the center of the flower. So I am using my off-white color. So go ahead and make a magic ring. Chain up 2. And then we will be making 8 half double crochets into the center ring. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3. That makes 1 half double crochet. So go ahead and make 8 half double crochets into the ring. Once you have your 8 half double crochets, go ahead and pull this tail end tight so it closes up the magic ring. And then we will join to the first half double crochet. So that first chain 2 in the beginning will not count as a stitch. So here it makes the center of your flower, and then grab your scissors and you can cut off that yarn. We will be switching to your second color. So to attach your second color, just pull it through your loop that you have. Pull the tail end of your first color tight. And I like to just knot these together to make it extra secure. I'm knotting the yellow and the cream colored tails together. And then I will crochet over the tail ends. So now we're going to chain up 3. And in that first stitch, we are going to make what I'm going to call a modified popcorn stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into that same stitch. I'm going to leave these tail ends out so it doesn't confuse you, but normally I would crochet over the tail ends. So we yarned over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and we're going to do that 3 more times. Yarn over, insert your hook into that same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So we did that 2 times. We're going to need to do that a total of 4 times. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. We did that 3 times total. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we should have 5 loops on the hook. So yarn over and pull through all 5 of the loops, and that will make our modified popcorn stitch. Chain up 2, and we will be doing that same stitch into the next stitch. So the chain 3 over here was just for the beginning. We're not going to do the chain 3 here. We're going to chain 2 to go over, and then yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then we're going to do it 3 more times for a total of 4 times. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. We should have 5 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 5. So we're going to continue to do that all the way around. We're going to chain 2 in between and then do a modified popcorn stitch. So there's another popcorn stitch, chain 2, and another popcorn stitch. So go ahead and do that all the way around until you get to the last stitch. So once you get to the end and make your last petal, you should have 8 of these popcorn stitches around your inner circle. So when we end, we will end with a popcorn stitch, and then we are going to slip stitch into this chain 3 from the beginning, the chain 3 space. So that will complete our second round, or our first round of petals. So for the third round, we're going to chain up 3, and we're just going to make that same popcorn stitch into that chain 3 space. After our popcorn stitch, we are going to chain 2, and now we are going to go into this chain 2 space from the previous round. We are going to slip stitch into there. And then we are going to chain 3 and make a popcorn stitch into that same chain 2 space. So after we have the popcorn, we're going to chain 2, go over into the next chain 2 space from the previous round, slip stitch, chain up 3, and make our popcorn stitch. So since we are slip stitching into these, you can tell that the petals are more pronounced. You can see the peaks of them since we are slip stitching it down, so it creates a little bump. So go ahead and keep chaining 2 between the popcorns, slip stitching into the next chain 2 space, start the popcorn stitch with the chain 3, and then make your popcorn stitch. Go ahead and do that all the way around. Once you get to the end of your round, you will want to end with a chain 2, and then we are going to join our round by slip stitching right underneath the chain 3 in the beginning. If you crochet super tight, you'll probably not see the little space, but there should be a little space under the chain 3. So that joins our third round. Now we have one more round of petals. So we're going to slip stitch up into this chain 3 space. We just slip stitched underneath it. Now we're going to slip stitch up into the chain 3 space. Chain up 3. And now we're going to make popcorn stitches in this chain 3 space, and then we're going to popcorn stitch into this chain 2 space. So we're going to make a petal on either side of the petal in the previous row. So there's going to be a chain 3 space and a chain 2 space that each petal has in the previous row. So we've chained up 3. We're going to make our popcorn stitch. We're going to find that chain 2, slip stitch in there, chain up 3, make a popcorn stitch. So there we have our petal from the previous row here, and now we have a petal on either side. So we just finished the popcorn stitch, chain 2, we'll find our next petal. Here's the chain 3, slip stitch into there, chain up 3, and make a popcorn stitch. Now we have to make a petal on the other side where the chain 2 is. So chain up 2, slip stitch into that chain 2 space, chain 3, and then make your popcorn stitch. So go ahead and do that all the way around, making a popcorn stitch into the chain 3 and the chain 2 spaces. And don't forget, you need to slip stitch into those spaces, then chain 3 before you do the popcorn stitch. So once you finish your last popcorn stitch, count the number of petals you have around on the outer edge. You should have 16. If you have 14 or 17, if you have more or less, you're gonna have to go back and figure out where you went wrong, because the petals the petal count is very critical once we square in our flower. So just make sure you have 16 of these petals around. If you don't, you probably skipped a chain 2 or a chain 3 space. And sometimes it's difficult to see where the round ends, so I know when I made a couple of these, I actually went over and I made a couple of extra petals. So once you're done with your last popcorn stitch, chain 2, and then we will join at the bottom of that chain 3 in the beginning. And at this point, you can go ahead and fasten off. Cut your yarn. You only need to leave enough to weave in your ends. So if you'd like to, you can weave in your ends at this point. I do recommend knotting the tail from the magic ring before you weave it in and cut it. Just tie it around a stitch, and then you can weave it in as you normally would. So now that we have our flower, we are going to work on making it a granny square with our same color that we made the center. Okay, so I weaved in my ends, so I have a nice clean flower to work with. And now we are going to use our other color, and you can attach this to any petal you want, as long as you join it to a chain 3 space and not a chain 2 space. So go ahead and find a chain 3 space and attach your yarn. Now we're going to chain up 3, and this chain 3 will count as a stitch, and make 2 double crochets, all into that chain 3 space. And now we're going to chain 3, 2, 3, and we're going to make 3 more double crochets right into that same space. What we're doing here is creating a corner for the granny square. So we should have a chain 3 that counts as a stitch, 2 double crochets, chain 3, and then 3 double crochets. And as you can see, it looks like a granny square corner. So because this is a circle, we're not going to be able to use double crochets all the way around to make our flower square. So we will be using half double crochets and single crochets to square this round flower in. So once you have your corner, chain 1, and then into the next chain 3 space. We're not going to be working in the chain 2 spaces, only the chain 3 spaces of the petals. So once you have your corner, chain 1, in this next chain 3 space, you are going to make 3 half double crochets. Chain 1, into the next chain 3 space, we are going to make 3 single crochets. Chain 1, in that next chain 3 space, we are going to make 3 half double crochets. So we just made our corner and we just made our first side. So chain 1, we're going to make another corner. So in this chain 3 space, 3 double crochets, chain 3, and 3 double crochets back into that chain 3 space to complete that corner. So you can see that it's starting to take shape of a square. So onto our next side, chain 1, 3 half double crochets into that next chain 3 space, chain 1. In our next space, we'll do 3 single crochets, chain 1. In our next space, we will make 3 half double crochets. Chain 1. We're at our next corner, so we will do 3 double crochets, chain 3, and 3 more double crochets into that same space to complete that corner. Chain 1, in our next chain 3 space, 3 half double crochets, chain 1, 3 single crochets into that next chain 3 space, chain 1, 3 half double crochets into that next chain 3 space, chain 1, we're at our next corner, so 3 double crochets, chain 3, and 3 more double crochets into that same space. Chain 1, make 3 half double crochets into that next chain 3 space, chain 1, 3 single crochets into that next space, chain 1, and 3 half double crochets into that next space, which will also be our last space. And to join to the corner, chain 1 and join to the very top of this beginning chain 3, because again that will count as a stitch. So now we have squared in our flower. You will have to stretch it a little bit, but it will work out. It will become a square, especially after we do the next and final round. So for the next round, we are going to slip stitch into these next 2 double crochets of that corner, and then we're also going to slip stitch into this chain 3 space just so we can get back to the corner. Now we're going to chain 3 and we are going to make our corner for this row. So chain 3 counts as a stitch. Make 2 double crochets, chain 3, and 3 double crochets back into that same stitch. Now we are just going to work like we normally would a granny square. If you aren't familiar, we will just be chaining 1, and then we will be working into these chain 1 spaces from the previous row with 3 double crochets each, and then the corner will be worked 3 double crochets, chain 3, and 3 double crochets all into one corner space. So now that we made our corner, chain 1, and we're going to do 3 double crochets into this chain 1 space. 1, 2, 3. And we're just going to keep doing that until we get to our next corner. Chain 1 and double crochet 3 times into that next chain space. Chain 1, 3 double crochets into the next chain space. Chain 1, 3 double crochets into that chain space. Chain 1, and now we're at our corner, so we're going to do our corner, 3 double crochets, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 3 double crochets back into that same space to complete that corner. So go ahead and do that all the way around. There's nothing fancy to it. Just keep chaining 1 and then making 3 double crochets into each of the spaces. And of course, when you get to your corners, you make 3 double crochets, chain 3, and 3 double crochets. So once you get to the end, you still want that chain 1, and then you are going to join to this first chain 3 at the very top, because again that counts as a stitch. And then you can go ahead and fasten off. Just leave enough yarn to weave in your tail or your ends, and now you have your granny square. So it takes a little fiddling to make it square, but once you can either block this, or once you sew them together with the other granny squares, they will turn out very square. So if you need directions on how to attach these granny squares, I have a video on how to attach the granny squares by crocheting them together, and I also have a join as you go method. So if you would like to learn the join as you go method, I'll link that video below. Be sure to watch that as soon as you make your first granny square, because the join as you go method, you will not be completing the last round when you join. But if you watch that video, you will understand that more. I hope you enjoyed making these flower granny squares. Please subscribe and thank you so much for watching.